Jake Carter woke up to the same gray dawn he always did, the kind that seeped through the blinds of his modest bedroom and painted everything in muted tones. He liked it that way, quiet, unassuming, predictable. At 17, he'd learned to crave the ordinary, even if his life was anything but. His father was William Carter, the President of the United States, a man whose name carried weight in every corner of the country. But here, in this small house on the outskirts of town, Jake was just Jake Thompson, a nobody with a fake last name and a carefully guarded secret. He rolled out of bed, his feet hitting the cold hardwood floor, and glanced at the clock, 6:45 a.m. Another day at Lincoln High, another day of blending in. He pulled on a plain gray hoodie and jeans, avoiding anything that might draw eyes. His mother, Margaret, had once tried to sneak a designer jacket into his closet, but he'd buried it under a pile of old shirts. "I'm not a billboard," he'd told her, and she'd sighed, knowing he meant it. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of coffee and toast. Margaret was already up, her auburn hair pulled into a tight bun, her face softened by the morning light. She was the first lady, but here she was just Mom, humming as she spread butter on bread. "Morning, kiddo," she said, sliding a plate toward him. "Sleep okay?" "Yeah," Jake lied, picking at the toast. He hadn't slept well in weeks, not since the whispers started at school. Nothing concrete, just a feeling, like someone was watching him too closely. "Your dad's in D.C. until tomorrow," she added, sipping her coffee. "Big meeting with the trade reps, he says hi." Jake nodded, keeping his eyes on his plate. He loved his dad, but their relationship was a tightrope walk, too much distance, too much expectation. William Carter was a man of steel, elected on a promise of justice and order, and he'd raised Jake to be strong in his own way. But strength, Jake thought, didn't mean flashing your name like a badge. It meant surviving the shadows. The bus ride to school was uneventful, a blur of chatter and diesel fumes. Jake sat near the back, earbuds in, staring out the window as the town rolled by, strip malls, gas stations, the occasional flag snapping in the wind. Lincoln High loomed ahead, a squat brick building surrounded by a chain-link fence. It wasn't fancy, but it was anonymous, and that's why Jake was here instead of some private academy. First period was calculus, his favorite. Numbers made sense, they didn't judge or shove you into lockers. He slid into his usual seat by the window, ignoring the hum of conversation around him. Across the room, Emily Harper glanced his way, then quickly looked down at her notebook. She was quiet like him, with dark hair and a habit of chewing her pencil when she thought no one was watching. Jake had caught her staring a few times, but he never said anything. Attention was a trap. The day dragged on, history, English, a mind-numbing gym class where he dodged a volleyball to the face. By lunch, he was ready to disappear into the courtyard with his tray of soggy fries and a bruised apple. He found a spot under a leafless oak, away from the cliques and noise, and opened his book, a worn copy of The Outsiders. He was halfway through a paragraph when he heard the footsteps. "Hey, Thompson!" The voice was sharp, laced with a grin Jake didn't need to see to recognize. He looked up, and there was Mark Reynolds, all swagger and sneer, his Letterman jacket slung over one shoulder. Behind him were Troy Bennett, hands in his pockets, and Lisa Carter, no relation, twirling a strand of blonde hair. Derek lingered a step back, phone already out, filming. Jake's stomach tightened. He'd bumped into Mark in the hall last week, a clumsy misstep that had sent Mark's soda splashing across the floor. "Watch it, freak," Mark had snapped, and Jake had apologized, hoping that'd be the end of it. Clearly it wasn't. "What's up?" Jake said, keeping his voice steady. He set the book down, his lunch tray balanced on his knees. Mark smirked, kicking at the dirt. "What's up?" "You're in my way, that's what's up. This is our spot now." Jake glanced around. The courtyard was huge, plenty of room for everyone. "Didn't see your name on it," he said quietly, regretting it the second it left his mouth. Troy laughed, a harsh bark. "Oh, he's got a mouth on him today." Lisa stepped closer, her eyes glinting. Maybe he needs to learn some manners. Before Jake could react, Mark shoved him, hard. The tray flipped, fries scattering across the pavement. A crowd started to form, phones flashing as kids smelled drama. Jake stumbled but caught himself, his hands scraping the ground. He stood slowly, brushing dirt off his jeans, and met Mark's gaze. "Walk away," Jake said, low enough that only Mark could hear. Mark hesitated, just for a split second, then laughed it off. "Or what, huh? You gonna cry?" He swung a fist into Jake's shoulder, sending him staggering back. The crowd hooted, egging it on. Troy blocked Jake's path as he tried to leave. "Where you going, loser?" Jake took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He could fight back, he'd taken self-defense classes, courtesy of the Secret Service, but that'd blow his cover. So he stood there, silent, as Mark grabbed his collar and shoved him down. His knee hit the pavement, pain shooting up his leg, but he didn't flinch. He just stared up at Mark, his gray eyes steady. "You're a nobody," Mark spat, literally, a glob landing near Jake's hand. Then he turned to the crowd, arms raised like a king. What Mark didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Jake wasn't a nobody. And every second of this was being recorded.